I, 15-year-old female, own several horses and train horses that have never been handled to be ridden and have been riding for 10 years now. My pony is Prince, a 5-year-old Connemara. Prince is not a rescue. We bought him last year. He is young and scared of bicycles. He snorts and prances, but as long as they aren't too loud or close enough to touch, he doesn't buck or kick. I always talk to the bikes if they are coming too close. I normally do this by saying, "Excuse me, can you slow down, he's scared of bikes?" But I often don't need to. I was riding him down one of my favourite trails that is about 2 meters wide. I meet a bike on here about once every time I go down there. He has never misbehaved, and I think it helps desensitize him. However, that day, a rainy Sunday when it would normally be deserted, there were around 30 13, 14-year-olds on bikes with headphones in, so they could not hear me. By the time I realized there were more than normal, I could not turn around because he gets far more upset when they come from behind. I pulled him off the path and walked him along the thin grass verge to try and get him as far from them as possible. I did consider dismounting, but he tends to get more agitated and less easy to control on the ground. By the time most of them had passed, I had to pull him back onto the path because there were dense trees on either side. At that point, he spotted an abandoned shopping trolley, and I let him look at it and move past at his own speed, as the path was empty, apart from a family about 20 meters behind us, just entering the tree area and blocking us in. Enter Darren. He was cycling toward us, and I could feel an already anxious Prince approach boiling point, and I asked him to slow down or possibly dismount his bike. He didn't. If anything, he sped up and said, "Why?" I said, quite loudly, because he was getting close, "He's really scared of bikes." And Darren said, "How is that my problem?" in a really passive-aggressive voice. I completely lost it. I yelled, "It becomes your problem when he kicks you and puts you in the hospital and breaks your bike and you have to pay because you broke the highway code." The dad from the family behind me starts saying, "Just stop, man." And Prince is starting to rear, and I'm concerned for his safety and mine, because the path is concrete, so I push him as far into the trees as he will go, while Darren cycles merrily on his way while swearing at me. He also nearly cycled into the stroller of the family behind on purpose, so the mom had to jump out of the way. It took me ages to calm Prince down, and it has majorly set us back in training. My dad says that I shouldn't have yelled at him. Am I the idiot? Also, I'm in the UK, where the highway code says 2 or more meters between any vehicle and a horse. I was wearing lots of high-vis. I couldn't exit the trail because Prince wasn't listening and the family was blocking us. Edit. Just to be clear, it was a bridleway which is designated for horses, but walkers and bikers are allowed too. And Darren was around 40, I would guess, so not a kid. In the UK, horses are very common, and they have separate trails where they have right-of-way. All UK residents are taught about the right-of-way of the horse in their driving tests. To be clear, I lived in the US, and some of the rules were different. I just wanted to make it clear that in my country, I was legally in the right. Important edit. There was a path for bikes and walkers only adjacent, and we are in an area where horses are very common, and most people know to avoid them and ask to interact with them. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. If you don't know how to interact with horses, or if you have behavioral problems around horses, then don't go onto a bridle path. I've been on private paths riding and encountered cyclists who refused to stop, and the entire hack class bolted with a bunch of children on horseback. And all they had to do was stop. They could have ended the life of a bunch of kids. Horses are skittish, and a bridle path isn't a road. Common sense says stop and get off your bike near a nervous horse. Comment 2. Not the idiot, and anyone saying, everyone sucks here, or more. You're the idiot obviously doesn't know the laws regarding horses and other vehicles, bikes, etc. in your country. Not every country has the same laws as here in the US. OP, you were right to defend your horse, for both your horses and your safety. Those people were inconsiderate pricks. Next time you're on your horse, wear a body cam. That way, you're protected by your own country's laws if anything happens because of these people. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, back with an update on the whole Darren versus Prince situation. It's been a hectic 3 days, and you won't believe the drama that unfolded. So, after the incident, I was pretty shaken up, but Prince was even more so. We've been working on his bike fear for a while now, and it felt like all our progress had been undone in one fell swoop. My dad, who's always been the level-headed one, suggested we take a break from that trail for a bit, but I was determined not to let Darren's ignorance win. The next day, I decided to take Prince out again, this time on a different route, one that's less frequented by cyclists. We were doing fine until, guess who shows up? Darren. I couldn't believe it. It was like he was stalking us. He had that same smug look on his face, and this time he was with a friend. They were both riding pretty fast, and as they got closer, I could see Darren pointing at us and laughing. I was ready to confront him, but before I could say anything, his friend, who I'll call Mike, did something unexpected. He slowed down, took off his headphones, and apologized for Darren's behavior. He explained that he didn't know about the horse right-of-way rules, and that Darren had bragged about the encounter, making it sound like a joke. Mike seemed genuinely sorry, and even offered to help desensitize Prince to bikes. I was taken aback by his kindness, especially after dealing with Darren. We chatted for a bit, and he shared that he used to ride horses when he was younger. His family had a farm, and he grew up around animals. It was a nice change of pace from the hostility I'd been facing. Meanwhile, Darren had circled back, annoyed that Mike was taking so long. He started mocking us again, but Mike stood up to him, telling him he was out of line and needed to learn some respect. Darren just scoffed and rode off. Leaving Mike with us, over the next couple of days, Mike came by a few times, each time without Darren. He was true to his word and helped with Prince. We started slow, with Mike walking his bike beside us, and gradually worked up to him riding at a distance. Prince was responding well, and I was grateful for the help. But here's where things get really crazy. Today, while Mike was helping me with Prince, Darren showed up again, but he wasn't alone. He had brought a local news reporter with him, claiming he wanted to expose the dangerous animals on public trails. He started making a scene, trying to provoke Prince into acting out on camera. Prince was getting nervous, and I was worried he might actually kick out this time. But then, the family from the original incident showed up. They had been walking on the trail and recognized Darren. The dad, who I learned was named Tom, started telling the reporter how Darren had nearly hit his baby's stroller and how he was the one causing trouble, not the horses. The reporter seemed to realize she wasn't getting the story Darren had promised. She started asking Tom more questions, and he explained the whole situation, including the part about horses having the right of way. Darren tried to interrupt, but Tom's wife pulled out her phone and showed a video she had taken of Darren's reckless biking. The reporter was now completely on our side, and she decided to do a story on the importance of sharing trails and respecting the rules, featuring Tom's family, Mike, Prince, and me. Darren was fuming. He tried to argue, but it was clear he was in the wrong, and now there was video evidence. As Darren stormed off, the reporter thanked us for our time and said she'd be in touch when the story aired. Mike gave me a high five, and Tom's family wished us well. It felt like a small victory, not just for Prince and me, but for everyone who uses the trails responsibly. Husband thinks I hate his mom, but I don't know how to tell him she's a monster. Oh boy, she's in tears now. So my 25-year-old husband is upset with me because last night his mom called him to ask us if we wanted to attend a family event later this week. I told him we could, but he sensed some lack of enthusiasm from me, or just got the general feeling that I already wasn't looking forward to it. He asked me why I always act like that when some kind of event involving his family comes up. I finally told him it's because his mom will make me uncomfortable when we go to these events. She's always commenting about our toddler son's weight, who is nearly 2.5 years old, and how he doesn't eat enough. We recently took an out-of-state trip for the holidays and stayed with some of his family. For a total of 3 days, I feel like they non-stop talked about our toddler's eating habits and how he's so skinny. She made comments like, "He used to be such a good eater." And by used to, she means when he was 6 to 7 months old and barely starting to even taste food. She even specifically asked if he weighs 40 pounds yet, to which I replied I think he would be considered overweight if he weighed 40 pounds after a quick Google search that said an average child will weigh 40 pounds closer to 4 years of age. My son was born very small at only 5 pounds 7 ounces and is super active, non-stop playing all day. He probably weighs around 26 or 27 pounds, which his pediatrician says is average, and has never once showed concern regarding his weight or eating habits. Not only around his family does she do this, but every time we take him to her house, which is not that often, but maybe 3 or 4 times a month, she never fails to comment that he's wasting away. Or, every time she sees him, he is much thinner than before. I also told him his mom does it to pick on me, since every time she is sick with the cold or flu, she makes huge pots of soups and invites us over to eat, since she's made so much. Last time we were thinking of somewhere to go out to eat, because I had cooked all week and didn't have the energy that specific day, or even feel like cooking. His mom called while we were deciding and let him know that she made a big pot of soup if we wanted to go over to eat. He said, "Oh, that's great," since we were deciding on going out to eat anyways, and I was up for it, to go eat at his mom's. She then asked how I was doing, because I had just recently gotten over having infection 19. Mind you, I am currently 7 months pregnant with our second. My husband told her I was doing much better, and she said, "Oh good," because she was very sick with something, which is why she made soup. Needless to say, after the call, I told my husband we wouldn't be going over because I could not get sick again, and I didn't want our son getting sick either. This part of the rant is more to show that she really can't be that concerned over our toddler's health, since she's always doing stuff like the above. Anyways, my husband thinks I hate his mother, and I don't know how to tell her if she could lay off the comments about the toddler's weight not sounding like an edge. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Kids grow kinda like slinkies. First they put on a little weight, and then they stretch out, growing taller. Then they gain more weight, then grow taller again. Seemingly. Does he cry a lot? If not, tell her he would cry if he was hungry, or at least seek out food. You need to watch her. She's a feeder. They will throw anything at kids to fatten them up, and then your kid will pick bad eating habits. Set your boundaries now, or she'll be off to the races, not the idiot. Comment 2. Our pediatrician says his size is perfectly healthy. Full stop. Change subject. Don't entertain her comments anymore. If she doesn't stop, add a "please stop commenting on his weight." He doesn't need criticism for his body type, and I don't need criticism for my parenting. Change the subject. Not the idiot. But for your husband's sake, you need to learn to exist in the same place as his mother. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I really appreciated the support and advice. So, it's been 2 weeks since I last updated you all, and boy do I have some news. First off, let's talk about the family event we ended up attending. It was my husband's cousin's engagement party, and as expected, his mom was there in full force. Before we even got through the door, she was already eyeing our toddler like he was a specimen under a microscope. I braced myself for the inevitable comments about his weight, but this time she added a new twist. She pulled me aside and said, "You know, if you fed him more of my soup, he'd fill out nicely." I was taken aback, not just by the audacity of her comment, but also because she seemed to forget the whole soup incident when I was recovering from infection 19. I bit my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene at the party. But that wasn't even the jaw-dropping moment of the night. Later on, while everyone was busy celebrating, I overheard my mother-in-law talking to another relative. She was saying how she thought I was a bad influence on her son and how I was turning him against his own family. My heart sank. I knew she wasn't my biggest fan, but hearing those words felt like a punch to the gut. I confronted my husband about it later that night. He was shocked and tried to reassure me, saying she didn't mean it. But the damage was done. It was clear that she had been harboring these feelings for a while, and it hurt to know she thought so poorly of me. Now, let's rewind a bit to give you some context. My husband and I met in college, and back then, his mom was actually quite supportive of our relationship. She would invite me over for dinner, and we'd have pleasant conversations. But things changed when we got married and had our son. It was like a switch flipped, and suddenly, I could do nothing right in her eyes. The tension had been building for years, but I never expected it to come to a head like this. After the party, my husband and I had a long talk. He admitted that he had noticed his mom's behavior, but didn't know how to address it without causing more drama. He promised to talk to her, to set some boundaries. A few days later, he did just that. He sat down with his mom and explained how her comments were affecting us, especially me. She was defensive at first, but then she broke down and admitted that she felt left out of our lives and was worried about losing her son to his new family. It was a surprise to hear her open up like that, but it didn't excuse her behavior. My husband made it clear that while we wanted her in our lives, she needed to respect us as parents and as a family. Things seemed to be looking up until last night. We were at her house for a quiet dinner, just trying to mend fences. But then, she brought out a scale and asked if we could weigh our toddler right then and there. I was stunned. It was such a blatant disregard for the conversation they had just had. I couldn't hold back anymore. I told her that her obsession with our son's weight was unhealthy and that we trusted our pediatrician's advice. My husband backed me up, but the evening ended with her in tears and us leaving earlier than planned. It's been a ride of emotions these past 2 weeks. I felt heartbroken, betrayed, and angry, but through it all, my husband has been my rock. He's stood by me and shown that he's willing to stand up to his mom for the sake of our family. Professor got replaced by a new guy. Kay and I show him my contortion hobby pic, but he makes inappropriate comments. Oh boy, he resigns later. I, 21-year-old female, have been going to college since September of last year. From September to November, we had a really nice lady as our main professor, homeroom teacher. She was already at the end of pregnancy when we started the school year, so unfortunately, she had to go. In December, we got a different professor, 38-year-old male. I'll call him Kay. Kay was a nice guy. He wasn't too old, so he got along with a lot of the students. He was funny, and everyone who knew him loved him. A week before winter break, he had everyone do a PowerPoint presentation about themselves, which, although some of us found childish, we all liked him, so nobody complained. Multiple students did their presentations before me, and all was fine until it was my turn. I am a contortionist, and the summer before college, I got to perform in a traveling circus. I had been to that circus many times before, so it was very cool that I got to be part of the show. Contortion being my biggest hobby, I obviously mentioned it in my presentation. When I mentioned that I got to perform in a circus and that it was my dream job, Kay burst out laughing. He said, "I've never heard someone be this excited to be a clown." Everyone else in class started to laugh. It's a bit ignorant to assume that everyone in a circus is a clown, but fine. My mood changed, however, when I showed them a picture of me in contortion. Like many poses in contortion, I was pretty much bent in half. When I showed that picture, one of my classmates yelled, "Now that's an arched back," to which Kay, who should be more professional than that, responded, "I bet you're quite popular in the bedroom." My heart dropped when he said that. I could not believe it. I refused to finish my presentation. My classmates said I was overreacting. After class, when I was about to walk out, I turned to Kay and said, "Gross joke." Then he said, "We're all adults here. We can joke with each other. Sometimes you just have to put your big girl pants on and suck it up." I didn't respond and walked out. At home, I could not stop crying because I really felt uncomfortable with that joke. I can usually handle it, but for some reason, I felt like an idiot standing there. I told my mom about what happened, and she made me send an email to the school. They took it very seriously and said they would take immediate action. January 8th was my first day back at school after winter break. We were introduced to a new professor. She's okay, but she is quite strict, and not everyone likes her. She had a long lecture about inappropriate comments and how we, as adults, need to respect boundaries since we're no longer little kids. Now, a lot of my classmates are mad at me because they are blaming me for Kay being gone. I don't know if Kay still works at our college. I'm not sure what happened to him, but everyone thinks I'm a jerk now. Edit. Please understand, I am not from America. I'm from Europe. This is, in fact, how college works in my country. I know it might sound strange if you're thinking about American college, homeroom teachers and all, but this is how college works in my country. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I bet you're quite popular in the bedroom. I just made a weird sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a laugh when I read that. What the LMAO? Not the jerk, NTA. That is so inappropriate. He's an adult. He chose to say that and knew what he was doing. This is someone who has no business teaching. Edit. And by inappropriate, I mean intimacy harassment. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I also do circus arts. Aerial. I'm flexible for a normal person, but not nearly contortion level. And yeah, that would really piss me off. It was intimacy harassment, plain and simple, so you were right to report it. Also, the undertones of big girl pants, like you're a child who can't think for yourself and who is powerless against him. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post, and boy, do I have an update for you. Remember how I told you about the incident with my professor, Kay, and the inappropriate comment he made during my presentation? Well, things have taken a turn, and not exactly for the better. After Kay was replaced, rumors started flying around campus. Some said he was fired, others said he was just suspended. But the truth came out when I bumped into one of Kay's close friends, another professor, who I'll call L. L pulled me aside and, in a hushed tone, told me that Kay wasn't fired or suspended. He had actually resigned because he was ashamed of his behavior and the trouble it caused. I was shocked. I never wanted him to quit. I just wanted an apology, but here's where it gets even more complicated. Elle confided in me that Kay had been going through a rough divorce and was struggling with his mental health. His joke, as inappropriate as it was a misguided attempt at humor to mask his own pain. I felt a pang of guilt. I had no idea what he was going through, and now I was partly responsible for his resignation. The new professor, who's quite strict, has been piling on the work. She's all about discipline and zero tolerance for nonsense. Some of my classmates have been struggling to keep up, and they've been taking their frustrations out on me. They blame me for Kay's departure and for the increased workload. I've tried to explain that I didn't mean for any of this to happen, but they're not having any of it. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I received an email from Kay himself. He apologized for his comment and explained his personal situation. He said he didn't hold any grudges against me and that he hoped I could forgive him. I was torn. On one hand, I was relieved to hear from him and to know that he was taking responsibility for his actions. On the other hand, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had contributed to his downfall. The confrontation came to a head when one of my classmates, who I'll call M, decided to confront me in front of everyone. M accused me of being too sensitive and ruining Kay's career. I tried to defend myself, saying that I had a right to feel safe and respected in class. But M wasn't having it. She brought up Kay's personal issues, and the whole class got involved. It was a mess. In the midst of the argument, our new professor walked in. She overheard everything and decided to set the record straight. She told the class that Kay's departure was his own decision and that no one should be blamed for it. She also emphasized the importance of maintaining a professional environment where everyone feels respected. The class went silent. Some of my classmates apologized to me after realizing that they had been unfair in their judgment. But the damage was done. The atmosphere in class has been tense ever since, and I can't help but feel a mix of relief and sadness. As for Kay, he started a new job at a different college. I heard he's doing better and getting the help he needs. I'm glad for him, but I can't shake off the feeling that things could have been handled differently. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.